Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second podcast of CIPS MENA Procurement Master Talk series. I'm your host, Lalit Dhamija, with 40 years experience in procurement and supply. I'm ex-procedure and process assurance manager uh, in procurement department of ADNOC Onshore. After my corporate career spanning 37 years, I'm into global procurement and supply chain training. I have been working as a CIPS volunteer in UAE since 2009. Today, I'm honored to be joined by Sam Achampong. We will talk all about CIPS MENA activities, roles, and responsibilities, and about ongoing activities for learning and development in the MENA region. We will summarize the key findings at end of the podcast. Something about Sam. Sam is a procurement professional with extensive experience in procurement and supply chain management across Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. He has held senior procurement and strategic sourcing roles for organizations such as Majid Al Futtaim, Abu Dhabi Municipality, and Nakheel in the Middle East, MTN across Africa, and Land Securities in the UK. An active member of the procurement fraternity in the MENA region, Sam is regional head and general manager of the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply for the Middle East and North Africa region. He holds a master's degree in international procurement from the University of Glamorgan in Wales. He's a MSc in facilities management from the University of Westminster uh, in England, and he's a fellow of Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply. Sam is a regular speaker at industry events and an advocate of professional standards in procurement and supply management. Welcome, Sam.
Hi,
Hi,
Lalit.
how?
Good morning.
Good morning, Sam. My first question to you is an easy one. What three words do you think your colleagues and peers would use to describe you?
Well, I thought you were going to start with an easy question. That's a tricky one. I guess. What would I say? Well, I'm definitely approachable, I'd say, and I've always tried to be throughout my career. I'd hope I'm also knowledgeable, and I suppose I also try to inspire people. So I'd say probably inspirational as well.
Absolutely, I can say from my first-hand experience while working with you for more than around 10 years, which is really you're approachable and you quite encourage the people like SIPS community, people like us. And because of your encouragement, we are seeing the rapid progress in the SIPS MENA region for the SIPS activities.
Thank you, Lalit.
Sam, I would also like to know about your hobbies.
Another difficult question. Well, I think in the role that I do, it's very difficult to maintain hobbies. But I've always been my biggest love is football. I certainly don't play as much of it as I used to, but I still watch an awful lot of football. So that's my main hobby. My second hobby used to be martial arts, taekwondo.
Uh-huh.
Um, Again, don't get to practice that as much as I would do, but it's still a second love of mine.
Will you like to tell which club you are supporting, or it is a controversial thing?
It's not controversial at all. I support the best club in the world, Tottenham Hotspur.
Okay, that's it. Good. And Sam, what are the activities of and role played by the SIPS MENA uh, in the
Well,
Middle East?
SIPS
Yeah,
CIPS
CIPS
is the
MENA.
largest organization in the world representing procurement and representing the procurement and supply profession.
Uh-huh.
That's what the Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply is. And our aim as an institute is to ensure that anyone working in the profession has the necessary skills to do so. So CIPS MENA carries out that role here in the Middle East on behalf of the wider global CIPS organization.
Mm-hmm. And what were the activities like carried out by CIPS MENA?
Well, in terms of activities, we've been very lucky to have a great team of volunteers who've created a vibrant and active community of professionals here in the region. And along with our volunteers and our wider community, we work on sharing best practice and knowledge, organizing regular networking events and thought leadership sessions as well. So that's on the community front, and that's really to engage the wider professional procurement community. Apart from that, obviously CIPS is involved in the educational aspect. So we own the suite of qualifications, from the certificate in procurement and supply all the way up to the professional diploma. So we work with study centres, procurement education providers to make sure that that education is available to people, so people can actually study and become professional procurement personnel.
Mm-hmm.
And on the second side of it, we work on a B2B basis with organizations who opt to work with CIPS directly. And we provide them with the same assistance in making sure that their teams and their staff have the skills to provide procurement at the very, very highest level. As well as the people, we also work with organizations on how they do procurement. So we will look at their practices, processes, and procedures.
Mm-hmm.
We'll work with them to ensure that they have the best methods in place and the best frameworks in place to deliver procurement and supply chain practice on behalf of their organizations at the very highest level.
Okay, if any organization or any individual wants to know in details about these activities, so what will be the place to go to?
Well, they can contact us directly. They can either contact me directly, or they can go on the CIPS website, www.cips.org, cips.org, or email us directly. I'm sure I can provide contact details as part of this podcast.
Okay, at the end of the podcast, we'll be sharing the slide which shows the contact details. And Sam, what are the various types of trainings offered by CIPS MENA?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we provide qualifications. So we either provide, if we split the training into two, we either provide qualifications or short courses.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, our qualifications curriculum is globally acknowledged and also provides bona fide educational credits to anyone who successfully completes them. So the qualifications ladder starts from the certificate in procurement and supply all the way up to the professional diploma. And those who achieve the professional diploma can also use the designation MCIPS or MCIPS, which is widely acknowledged across the world as the license to practice in procurement and supply. And in some cases is mandated by major organizations and governments and NGOs as being a must-have if you work in procurement. So you'll also find there's several governments in the region, such as the governments of Bahrain and the government of Saudi Arabia, who also provide funding to any student or individual who wants to undertake CIPS qualifications. Now, the other side is our short courses, of course. Our short courses are more specific and bite-sized. They cover the main and common topics in the profession, such as category management, negotiation skills, contract management ethics, and many more.
Okay, these short courses, normally what will be the duration of these, and end of the short courses, what does the participant get or the organization get?
So short courses can be any duration depending on the topic, really. So from up to 1 day or less than that, from 4 hours or whatever else, all the way up to a 3-day short course, depending on the subject, depending on the level, and depending on what the organization wants to get from it. So we will conduct public short courses, in public places where anyone can log on to,
Right.
or we can provide short courses in-house for organizations on a broad or bespoke subjects, depending on their needs.
Okay, and I think at the end of the course, individuals or organizations, they get some certification also from CIPS, a certificate of attendance, I believe.
So anything that CIPS delivered is underpinned by what we call our global standard. So there are specific standards that underpin every type of training or education that we provide. So yes, anyone who undertakes our courses will get acknowledgement in the form of a certificate to acknowledge that they have undertaken or they have attended a CIPS course, which obviously follows the guidance of our global standard.
Okay, all right. Sam, we want to know about CIPS study centers and how can an organization set up a CIPS study center if they're interested in?
Of course, yeah, good question. So study centers, just to put it into context, study centers are places where somebody can go and study for CIPS examinations, in effect. So if an individual wanted to take CIPS exams, they can enroll to be taught that curriculum at a number of places across the region and in fact across the world. There's almost 300 of these study centers around the world. In the region, we have about 20 study centers in the region that cover the curriculum. And to find out where study centers are situated, it's just as simple as going onto the CIPS website, www.cips.org, and that has a geographical list of where study centers are. And in addition, talking about your second question, if a place of learning wants to offer CIPS qualifications, then there is guidance in the same part of the website on how to become a CIPS study center as well. So there are several of these around the region, and they are either bespoke training institutions or a university. So there's a number of universities, such as the University of Dubai, which is also, for example, a CIPS study center.
Okay, all right. And what about CIPS examination centers?
I think in terms of where they are, I'll give the same guidance. So you can look on the website, www.cips.org, to find out where they are. But in essence, most countries in the region will have an examination center where you can go and sit for your CIPS examination on the designated days.
Okay, and while interacting with the community, students community, sometimes I come across their concerns. We say that sometimes it takes time for finding the slot for booking for examination because of the new offerings where you are using computers like online. So has CIPS done anything about this?
Yes, absolutely valid concerns. You'll be aware that a short while ago we migrated onto the computer-based examination method, and that necessitated let's call it a new breed of examination centers who have the facilities to accommodate computer-based examination. So we are ramping up the number of institutions who can offer computer-based examinations, and that's growing all the time. So you'll find by the time we have our next examination series, there'll be more options and there'll be more slots for people to take computer-based examinations. But over the past 6 months, I guess, there's been a migration from the traditional examinations, the written examinations only, to the CBE or computer-based exam. So there's been a necessary transition and the introduction of new partners to be examination centers on our behalf and provide that facility. But the number of facilities that are provided that is growing all the time. So that that blockage in the number of slots will be alleviated and continues to be alleviated all the time.
Sam, as we are working remotely and we are hearing some amazing stories coming from all over, innovations and creativity and new type of solutions. So I've seen in UAE, in Higher College of Technology, now all their learning or teaching is online. And see, they had a challenge how to conduct examinations. So they came up with the solutions, and now all the examinations are conducted remotely. They got a checklist, and they got security levels. After ascertaining that, students can take test online. So I think that would be the ultimate things for students of CIPS. I know CIPS has ethics, they've got rules. And if this can be done for the students who can take the examinations remotely after all the security concerns are addressed, maybe through on their personal PC, I think that will be a big service for the community, and it will provide a lot of flexibility. So this is a suggestion which you can probably consider and take with the CIPS UK.
Yeah, look, it's a great consideration, and you'll find a lot of organisations are putting a lot of their offerings online. So if you speak about examinations specifically, they can already be done on a computer. So can they be invigilated remotely? I think that's what you're saying, because
Right.
the difference with examinations, it's not just online learning where you all jump on Zoom. It's all about being invigilated. So yeah, I mean, I don't see why, you know, in the fullness of time, we cannot ramp up remote invigilation. And the reason why I say ramp up is that remote invigilation is already available through CIPS. And there are already a number of students who are remotely invigilated. So that facility already exists. Now, whether clearly there isn't capacity at present for everyone to be remotely invigilated, but the facility already exists, and there are a number of people who are already remotely invigilated. It just needs to be ramped up a little bit.
Okay, that's a really good information. And Sam, coming to CIPS branch committees, what are the functions of CIPS branch committees, and like how many committees would be there in the MENA region?
Well, the branch committee is a great question, by the way, Lalit, and I know you've been a feature of CIPS branch committees for many, many years in this region, and actually, I myself, I've been a member of CIPS branch committees for many, many years, like yourself. So before I moved out to the UAE, where I'm now based, I was involved in the branch committees in the UK, and subsequently involved in the branch committees out here in the Middle East region, specifically in the UAE as well. So branch committees are the cornerstone of CIPS activity. That's really what they are. So they're formed of a group of CIPS members who promote the profession by organising networking and thought leadership sessions. That's what they do. So you have a group of CIPS members who are volunteers, who are voted by the wider community in wherever they reside, and you'll usually have a chairman and a vice chairman, and other responsibilities throughout the committee, and they will take on the tasks of ensuring that the professional procurement community in their particular area are continually served with thought leadership and opportunities to network. So several branch committees or several branches throughout the world, and in this region we have committees in the UAE. We actually have 3 committees in the UAE. We have the Northern Emirates branch, the Abu Dhabi branch, and the Dubai branch. We also have branches in Saudi Arabia, Oman, Bahrain, Pakistan, Egypt, Sudan, and Lebanon, and I may well have missed 1 or 2.
Egypt,
but
maybe, yeah.
I think I did mention Egypt, but
yeah.
And that's really their function. Their function is to serve the professional procurement community in their region, and they are voted for usually by the community wherever they are, and they serve that community, and they've been you know, the key driver of the growth of the professional procurement community in this region over the last 5 years.
And I know the type of support they are getting from CIPS MENA, and personally from you, the type of encouragement and flexibility and support. So that has really helped people to grow. And this also gives the chance to community to participate also. So there are panel discussions, there are new speakers, first time speakers, they get a platform and they get a place to voice their concerns and to share their ideas, and sometimes there's a mentoring activities going on. So it provides a lot of like potential. There's a lot of potential for the community to share and contribute to the body of knowledge in procurement and supply chain. And
Well,
yes, Sam.
no, I was just going to say, but yes, the branch committees, they are the experts in what's needed by the professional procurement community in their specific geographical area. So no, our role as an institute is to support, is to provide support for them to be able to serve the geographies in which they're located. And as I've said before, they've been absolutely pivotal in growing the professional procurement community in the MENA region, which over the last 5 years, if you look at the professional procurement community in the MENA region, it's more than doubled in the last 5 years. The number of people who are qualified, who formally qualified in procurement and supply, the number of people who are formal members of a professional organization, i.e. the people who are in effect licensed procurement professionals, has doubled over the last 5 years. And a lot of that has been by the branch committees involving people in their locality to understand what professional procurement means, and getting involved, getting qualified, getting the learning, and taking it back to their organizations. And the reason why is because the branch committees understand exactly what the formulation of professionals are in their region. And you'll see that, for example, the committee in the Northern Emirates, they will host a number of events over a weekend, because that's what works in that geography. And maybe the Dubai committee will host different types of events in the middle of the week, in the evenings, and that serves their community. And the branch in Egypt also have a different approach, as to the branch in Pakistan. And you also have a number of women in procurement groups and groups of CIPS MENA millennials. So they all understand what their geographies, or what their kind of groups of professionals want to see. So we empower them. They know what they're doing. They have all the ideas. It's not down to me. So what we do as an institute is we just empower them to be able to serve the professional procurement community in their locality.
Right. And I have seen, because of the remote working, it has become so easy to have webinars, to have discussions like we're having now. Because before, if we wanted to have like a talk, a procurement master talk, we have to gather, we have to book a venue, gather audience, make bookings, travel. So many people had to travel from all over the place to a particular venue. And now it is so easy. From home, people are participating, and we are seeing more and more events which are coming in online, and more people are participating. So
yeah, no, I agree, and I think the world really now it really is a global village now. People have been saying it for many years, but it really is a global village. And the events I see now, the webinars, I can see a real cross-pollination of ideas from people, not just in one particular place, but additional input from people from around the world. Some of the webinars that have originated from the MENA region in recent days, you'll notice that there's a sizable proportion of the audience from other parts of the world, such as the UK, Australia, South Africa, and other parts of the world. So that really is getting a real global debate and global thought leadership and sharing of ideas across the professional procurement community, not just here in the MENA region, but across the world.
Sam, coming to trainings, How is the MENA region in terms of companies' investment in training and development of their staff? And do you see any trends?
Yeah, it goes without saying that it's very important, especially for the leading organizations and the organizations who want to be more agile, to have a real focus on empowering and equipping their staff with the necessary tools to do their job. And it doesn't get any more important than procurement and supply. In procurement and supply, your teams of staff are basically getting paid to spend your money, and they absolutely need to be qualified to do that. They can't be amateurs at spending your money. They need to be professionals at spending your money, right, so they can do it properly, because it's not their own money. So it goes without saying that it's very important that procurement teams, procurement and supply professionals across the region and the world have all the requisite skills to do their job properly, because that serves the wider organization and the wider community. So what is the trend? The trend is, in this day and age, is now exactly that. The trend is a continued commitment by organizations to best practice in the region, and equipping their teams to have the necessary skills to carry out procurement in a professional and strategic way. So that's the trend, and we see a lot of organizations now following the line of creating what we call a licensed procurement team, i.e. a team full of people who are there to carry out procurement activities and are qualified and equipped to do so. So there is a real trend towards organizations creating licensed procurement teams, having in-house academies in which their teams continually upskill themselves in procurement and supply chain practice. And we provide direct support to all of these organizations to do that. So you've seen, globally, this initiative is probably led by the United Nations, the UNDP, who already have an in-house commitment to say that people have to be qualified, and actually in this case specifically CIPS qualified, if they're going to be in procurement. So that's a real leadership position from the UNDP. And in the region, you have several organizations who take the same stance. You have, for example, SABIC in Saudi Arabia have the same stance. They have an in-house academy to ensure that their team are requisitely qualified in procurement and supply. Other organizations such as ADNOC have the same ethos. The Department of Culture and Tourism in Abu Dhabi have the same ethos. And other organizations are joining that trend as well, and starting the path towards licensing their team. Companies such as the Telecoms Regulations Authority, TRA, in the UAE, also have the same ambitions and have started along the path of providing a fully licensed procurement team.
Yeah, I think in the past, Etihad Airways also was doing a corporate award for CIPS qualification trainings or CIPS corporate award training.
It's a very, very good point, Lalit. And obviously, look, apologies, I clearly I haven't named every single organization who have that in place, but yes, of course, Etihad, and not even in the past, Etihad have a continued commitment to ensuring they have a fully equipped and licensed procurement team. So that ambition and that association continues with Etihad, and as I said, there's several other organizations who have that commitment, and that's why it's a growing trend. I've literally just mentioned some of them, and there are organizations. It's not just in the UAE; it's organizations in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, in Pakistan, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Oman, PDO, Petroleum Development in Oman, Oman Air. So there are literally lots of organizations who are showing their commitment to ensuring that their teams are fully equipped to carry out procurement on the strategic level. And as I said, we're working closely with them. But it's not just organizations who are training their staff. Incidentally, you also have organizations who are doing both things. They're saying, look, we want we want staff training, which is one thing, but we also want to make sure that the methods and practices in which we're adopting to deliver procurement is of a global standard. So you'll find organizations even such as the Dubai Expo 2020 project, who we've worked with on what we call the Procurement Excellence Program, so that they have in place the frameworks to deliver or to carry out procurement in a strategic and globally leading and recognized way. But of course, again, there isn't an exhaustive list. There's so many organizations who have done that in the region, and again, I'm sure I would leave some out, but people like the Roads and Transport Authority in Dubai have always also embarked on that journey to ensure that how they do procurement is of a global standard. You'll find the Department of Culture and Tourism in Abu Dhabi are the same. Even if you look at the healthcare sector, you look at King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz University in Saudi Arabia, again, have completed the CIPS Procurement Excellence Program, as have several organizations on an ongoing basis. Just last week or a couple of weeks ago, the Abu Dhabi Ports Authority have also completed that program to show that the way they do procurement is of a global standard. So the trend, as I said, Lalit, really is to have in place the practices and processes and the people of a global standard to deliver procurement, and that's really on an aggregate basis growing the maturity of the profession, and that's in terms of people and processes, but also in bespoke areas like ethics. And I think you alluded to ethics a bit earlier on. People will know that there is a standalone, what we call the CIPS ethics e-learning and the CIPS ethics test, where individuals can go online and get the required skills or the required knowledge on what ethics in business practice is, so that they're fully they fully have the tools to make sure that what they're doing and what their organization's doing follows real international practices in terms of ethics. So we have what's called the CIPS ethics test. And several organizations have ensured that all of their staff have not only gone through the learning, but have also taken the requisite test. And those organizations whose entire teams have successfully passed the CIPS ethics test are acknowledged on there's a global register of ethically certified organizations that can be accessed by anyone at any time. And on that list, you know, there is, in terms of trends, there is a real commitment towards ethics around the world and in the region. So you'll find organizations like, you know, Farah Leisure in Abu Dhabi, or the Department of Culture and Tourism, or the Telecoms Regulation Authority, TRA, who, to show their commitment, have ensured that all staff have taken the CIPS ethics test and are on the global ethics register. And even and when you look on the ethics register, it really is a global register. So, for example, you'll see companies such as Facebook are on the CIPS ethics register because all the procurement staff at Facebook have taken the CIPS ethics test and have successfully passed it. So best practice and leading practice is the trend at the moment, certainly within the region.
Quite insightful. Sam, what is your opinion? What will be the impact of online procurement trainings? And in current situation, will our thinking change our approach towards procurement and supply chain training?
I think what the reality is here is that it's not really a change to procurement and supply chain training, but it's a change to, I guess, training per se, training across all disciplines, but not only training, but communicating in general. So we, for a long time, have had the tools to communicate with each other virtually, and it's taken a global pandemic to enforce that and people have adopted these new methods to communicate, and they've proved to be agile enough to be not just fads, but to be real enablers to ensure we can gain knowledge and communicate with each other as you and I are doing right now. So.
Right.
But procurement training, like any other training, can be provided online. Certainly with our corporate clients who we deal with, where we were providing face-to-face training for their in-house teams. For the past few months, we've been delivering that virtually, and it's worked extremely well. In some ways, even better than face-to-face training, because the logistical element is no longer present. So absolutely, procurement training can, and where relevant, will be carried out online. You can have the full classroom experience fully online, as you can have in person. And there are always going to be, even now and after, when we get back to the new normality, there will still be instances where face-to-face interaction is necessary and is recommended. But what we do know is that the concept has been proved, that virtual training and virtual communication can be carried out effectively, and long may it continue.
Yeah, my first-hand experience, sometimes I have seen these online or remote trainings. Sometimes it is more intense, more focused, and there is more involvement of the participants. Surprisingly, I found it more effective with certain type of audience. And Sam, what do you think? Which type of trainings will be relevant now, and in short and medium term, in view of pandemic which we are going through?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult thing to say. The only thing I will say is, look, as we're in a different scenario and people are working from home, bite-sized chunks of training that can be done in a virtual setting are useful and applicable to anyone who wants to access them. So anything that's bite-sized that can be done online in the comfort of your own home, as we all are, is very useful. But really, that doesn't speak to the subjects that I would recommend, because I don't think there's anything that I would say, because we're in this situation, you should now quickly brush up on your skills in that particular area. And the reason why I'm saying that is because by their very nature, the practices around procurement and supply are, well, not complex, but they are things that I guess you should know, and it's not as if you're going to pick them up in their entirety in 2 or 3 weeks. So yes, you could brush up your knowledge on supply relationship management, but the core of that really, I think coming into this crisis, you should have had a grasp on that, I would have imagined, before this happened. But yes, if we're going to look at specific subjects, then yes, supply relationship management, brush up on that is very important to make sure you're practicing the core principles of supply relationship management, to make sure that you're keeping the communication clean and effective with your strategic suppliers. Your soft skills, your influencing skills are probably more and more apparent and needed now, because you don't have the body language aspect when you're dealing with internal and external stakeholders. Contract management, you could brush up on contract management. Everyone's talking about the type of clauses that people are relying on now in the face of a pandemic. People are talking about force majeure and what that is, and how it's used within a contract. So again, all those kind of areas could be brushed up on during this period of time.
Right, very meaningful indeed. And Sam, ultimately the final one, what will be your message to the procurement professionals?
I think what's interesting here is that this pandemic hasn't changed the face or the thinking of what best practice is in business, or what best practice is in procurement and supply.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hasn't changed the fundamental aspects of what best practice was. So what this has exposed is that there are issues being displayed by a lack of availability of supply, which means that you need to focus
Mm-hmm.
more with suppliers. It's also exposed the fact that certainly at the start of this pandemic, it was concentrated in the particular area, China,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people had all their eggs in the Chinese basket, as it were. So they would have been even more adversely exposed to that risk. Now, when I say best practice hasn't been shifted here, is what I mean is that supply relationship management has always been one of the key elements of procurement and supply. So it's too late to try and build a relationship with your supplier when the pandemic has already happened. So, so for those who are following the main tenets of supply relationship management would be standing in better stead during the pandemic than those who hadn't. So there's that aspect of it. And if you talk about the specific geographies, people could say, well, why did we focus all our efforts in China? Well, single sourcing to a single supplier or not having business continuity outside of a particular region, again, has never been best practice. Best practice is the opposite. So while this is a global thing, you certainly could have mitigated your risk a little bit if you had looked at the best practice in relation to risk management as well. So again, that in itself doesn't change. So and then you look at contract management and where we're looking to mitigate our risks in terms of, again, the often spoken about term of force majeure and other contract clauses. Again, contract management, how you put together your contracts, how you manage those contracts. Again, that's what best practice is all about. And you would have protected yourself to the best of your ability if you had those things in place. So best practice doesn't really change. And actually, it's more important to have these things in place and continue to practice them, because once we do inevitably come out of this crisis, you need to have maintained those kind of relationships and business relationships with your suppliers, and you need to have maintained your credibility with your internal and external stakeholders to make sure your organization can have a less bumpy ride as you emerge from this. So what is the message to procurement professionals? Clearly, as always, you need to be multifaceted. You need to understand your own business. So you're not siloed into a particular area of the function of procurement and supply. You're not just there to maybe negotiate with suppliers or to negotiate on contract clauses or reduction in scope. You really need to understand your full business, because if you have that knowledge, the holistic knowledge across all areas, then you really will be providing the best support to your business at all times, and you will have the credibility and your own brand within your organization to add value to your organization at this critical time, because the spotlight is on procurement professionals, whether we like it or not. Organizations are leaning on procurement professionals to help them navigate themselves through this crisis and out of it when it subsides.
Very insightful and meaningful. Probably this is the time for procurement to shine by being a strategic partner and to show how they can create value for the organization. Sam, it is time to wrap up now, and thanks for joining me. I just want to know if audience wants to contact you, how can they contact you?
They can certainly contact me via LinkedIn, or they can email me at sam.achampong@cips.org.
Yeah, it is displayed on the screen, and we will also carry it in the show notes. So the key learnings from the podcast have been, what were the CIPS MENA activities? We talked about the branch committees. We talked about the study centers, examination centers, ethics tests, which companies can take and individuals can take, and also about the courses offered by CIPS, corporate award training, qualifications training, short skills courses, and also about what is important in the current scenario, what procurement professionals should be doing, brushing up their skills and honing up their skills in supply relationship management, soft skills, influencing skills, and contract management, getting more familiar with the type of clauses. And as Sam said, best practices in the procurement has not gone away. They still remain. But what happened, maybe probably they exposed some of the gaps, some of the areas where we were not working as much as we should have worked. And once again, Sam, I thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
My pleasure, Lalit. My pleasure.
Thank you, you all for tuning in. You can find all the podcasts which we are conducting under CIPS MENA Procurement Master Talks on CIPS MENA Facebook page, and we will provide the link in show notes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.